the first thing I want to talk to you about is your photos, because they are the most important part of your profile. And the first reason that they're the most important part of your profile is that as we are scrolling through page after page, like you might do on any website that you're looking at, imagine that most casters are very tired, they're overworked, and they're trying to do things as quickly as possible. So what we're trying to do is a great job where these pictures and everything that we do on your profile really serves you, but also it's very easy for them, because people are gonna like things that work well for them, and they're gonna worry about things that aren't that easy, or if they're in a big rush, they're gonna skip things that just take them a little longer. So when you're talking about your photos, the first two things that you're gonna wanna think about with those is that they are appropriate and current. All right, so when we talk about appropriate, there are a lot of things that go into deciding what's appropriate, and that's going to be different for different people and different branding. What you need to have thought out so that you can save money is what your branding is. Are you going for a look that's mostly sexy or brainy or a mom or a boss or a tough guy? Or do you have a range of several of these? And we're going to talk about some things that'll be a little different in all of these ideas for kids. So in an adult conversation, we're talking about some pictures for a comedy or commercial look and a dramatic look, something that's a little bit more serious. And you can look at yourself realistically and see which of the major types of roles your pictures will be most like. Okay, so when you think of what your branding is, you're going to want to have your pictures be most like that. And we're going to keep talking about this for a little while until that gets a little bit more clear. Now with kids, they need to be appropriate and current. And one of the things that's really important with children is that they need to be age appropriate. For instance, I often see girls that are 14, 15, and 16 in bikini shots with high heels, which isn't really that appropriate for our work, because kids under 18 aren't really cast in sexy sorts of roles, right? So those pictures may look great and it's fun to take them because they're glammy and they're beautiful, and sometimes that works in modeling, but actually for casting in roles, that's not going to work so well. So what we expect them to be is appropriate and current, all right? There are some exceptions to current. For instance, you're allowed to use your pictures. We're generally going to assume that your pictures are within 2 years. But let's face it, if you're 65 years old and these may be 4 or 5 years old and you look virtually the same, it may not make a whole lot of difference. But if you're talking about a child who was 7 years old when this picture was taken and now is 10, you're going to see a whole lot of difference. Okay, so in the conversation of children, if they're under 5, then you're usually allowed to just use snapshots. You don't have to have a professional photographer, because kids change so quickly. Now, would a professional photographer serve you even if your child is under 5? Yeah, it will probably help you if you have a killer shot of your child or your children, and if you keep those very current. But that can be challenging. You know, there's expense and there's time and there's effort involved in that, and children change so quickly. So one of the things that you're always going to try to do in the case of a child is put a date of birth on the photo, so that somebody knows that if it seems like they're looking at a 6-year-old and they look and they see that this child would now be 10, they know this picture is a little older, right? So if you're looking at something online, it may be updated very often, but if something is printed out and put into a file or into a case that is a file for a certain production, and the production ends up happening later, they're going to want to look at that and have some idea how old this person is now. So for kids under 18, you're going to put a date of birth with their photos, and you are not always going to be able to shoot and keep that current, and we do understand that. Let's talk a little bit about what's appropriate to get parts. Now, there are thousands of different types of parts, and you're not going to be able to get thousands of different types of professional pictures that are ready at all times and appropriate. So we're going to break this down in the 2 most popular, and those are comedy and drama. And your comedy photo is something that you can also use for commercials, right? So it's a big smiling straight on headshot, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in some of the subsequent videos here. And then there's a dramatic photo, which is going to look much more serious, and we're going to talk about that. So this is your beginning sort of intro info, and let's move on to the next video.